Bikes have evolved constantly over the years and are almost unrecognisable from the velocipedes of the Victorian era. But what are the bike parts that have had the biggest impact on cycling? And what are the parts that have changed cycling for the better? Well, in this video is our top list of the most important bike innovations so far. The derailleur. Now these days we might take the ability to change gear for granted, but it's hard to imagine that gearing only really came into racing in the 1930s with the invention of the derailleur. Prior to that, riders basically only really had one gear, although there was the option to take your wheel out, spin it around with another cog on the back and use that, effectively giving you two gears. Although to do this you had to stop, take your wheel out, and well, it was slow and far from ideal. Something I found out firsthand when trying to emulate Tullio Campagnolo on the Crocchia Downy in the rain. The rear derailleur allowed riders to change gear on the go. This meant they could tackle steeper gradients, a wider variety of gradients, and it also made racing faster. Sound, the speed of light, and the cosmic microwave background have always existed, and in that respect, it's hard to imagine that pedals haven't also. But they only came into existence in 1863. Prior to this, bikes were known as velocipedes, and you had to use your feet, kind of like a balance bike, but for adults. The invention of the pedal is attributed to Pierre Lallemand, who claims to have come up with the pedal and rotary cranks that would be attached to the front wheel to drive the machine. Now at the time, this would have been a huge technological leap forward and paved the way for the modern bikes we started to see later on. But cool nerdy tech detail, and that is that on modern pedals, the left-hand pedal has a reverse thread. This is to stop it coming undone. This wasn't always the case. This actually came about as a design solution to people continuously undoing their left-hand pedal while they were cycling along. Power meters. Bike power meters first became available in the late 1980s, and the first commercially available portable unit was the SRM, or Schoberer Radmesstechnik, or Schoberer's bike measuring technology, invented by the German Ulrich Schoberer. Power meters have had a huge impact on the sport of cycling. Not only do they allow riders to perfectly pace their efforts in time trials or at long climbs, they've also allowed coaches to analyse and quantify athlete performances, which has led to better structured and more efficient training. Carbon fibre frames. Carbon fibre is the most widely used material in performance bike frame manufacturing today, and this is for good reason. It allows frames to be lighter, stiffer, more corrosion resistant than steel, and also you can mould it into pretty much any shape you want. The first notable example is the Look KG86, which Greg LeMond used to win the 1986 Tour de France. Carbon fibre was a huge leap forward in materials technology, and the fact that you could mould it into almost any shape meant that bike designers could make bikes far more aerodynamic than ever before. And this led to designs such as the Lotus 110 Superbike that Chris Boardman used in the hour record. However, it might be hard to believe this now, but riders weren't initially convinced of the durability of the new composite material. And it wasn't until the Mapei team in the 90s dominated the cobbled classics riding the carbon fibre Colnago C40 that the material really took off. STI shifters. Now we might take changing gear on a bike for granted, but we also take changing gear on our handlebars for granted as well. Prior to 1990, you would have had to have used down tube shifters in order to change gear, or so I'm told by the older GCN presenters. STI shifters, or Shimano Total Integration Shifters to give them their full name, allowed you to change gear on your brake levers rather than having to reach down onto your down tube, something which made responding to attacks in races or having to change gear when you were on a climb much easier. Just simply click with your hands and you're away. On the topic of shifting, we also have to talk about electronic gears. Shimano's Di2 system debuted in 2009. With Di2, a light press of a simple button resulted in quick, precise and consistent shifting. Now technically, the first electronic group set was the ill-fated Mavic Zap in 1992, but this proved too unreliable and it never really caught on. But with Di2, the system stuck, and other brands subsequently took note, with Campagnolo bringing out EPS and SRAM with its ETAP system. Electronic shifting has become the default option for performance road bikes, and although there are still some specialist applications where mechanical gears are favoured, electronic shifting has brought smoothness, reliability, speed and consistency to changing gear. Now we're going to go back in time again to 1887, and if you were one of the people who was riding a bike around then you probably would have been shaken around a lot, because pneumatic tyres hadn't been invented until then. The man behind the invention, John Boyd Dunlop. Yep, the founder of Dunlop tyres. Now the pneumatic tyres came about because Dunlop wanted to create an invention which would stop his son getting headaches from bouncing around on rough roads. No wonder. Well, big thanks, John, for coming up with the invention that would allow us to all ride around far more smoothly. We're forever grateful for that and the Green Flash trainers. Our next big technological innovation is a controversial one. Disc brakes. They certainly haven't been without their detractors, and it's taken a while to convince most of the pro peloton that they are indeed the future. But the same could be said about other innovations in this list, such as carbon fibre frames when they were first introduced. And it wasn't until 2017 that Marcel Kittel took the first pro victory on disc brakes. Since then, there have been countless others, and we've even seen summit finishers from the likes of Alaphilippe and Nairo Quintana won on disc brakes. Disc brakes offer far more consistent braking in all weather conditions, more power and more modulation. It's a vastly improved system over rim brake technology, and in this respect, they are without doubt the future of braking. Our final entry on this list is the safety bicycle. What on earth is the safety bicycle, I hear you ask? Well, prior to its invention in 1885, people rode around on these. Yep, penny farthings. John Kemp Starley set about designing a bike that was safer and more efficient than the penny farthing, and the result was the safety bicycle, the bike which defined the shape of the modern bikes we see today with its diamond-shaped frame. And in this regard, we owe a lot to Starley. He is the father of the modern bicycle design, and probably the most important inventor you've never heard of. That is, of course, unless you've heard of him. Next time you're on a bike ride, doff your cap or helmet to Starley. We owe him a lot. Now that was our top list of the most important bike parts that have changed the world. But what did we miss? Let us know on social media or in the comments. And also, what about the next 10 innovations? What are going to be the biggest innovations in the future? If you've got any ideas, we'd like to hear those too. Right, I'm going to go now for a bike ride. Bye.